I just finished public school, I'll tell you why it's great. Waking up at 6 a.m. to pledge allegiance to the state. Yeah, it's true. I got my public school blues.
One of the first things that we're going to do tonight is we are going to talk about this TED Talk. It is actually the most popular item on the show prep.
Really?
We have on the new website, I think people should know this, under the live show tab, there's something that's called Submit Show Prep, and you can go there and you can see links that people submitted. These are things that people want us to discuss on the show. So the number one option in show prep right now is a TED Talk from a math teacher, or maybe a former math teacher named John Bennett. It's called Why Math Instruction is Unnecessary. So this talk is actually so short that I think I'm just going to play it on the show in its entirety. And be interested to get people's feedback in the chat real time as you listen to this. Some of you might be a little irritated at first. Osborne, I think you said you wanted to really give him some what for?
Yes, I believe that he was a shill for the New World Order.
Ah, yes. Whoa.
That's the kind of thing you have to scream if you're going to say it.
Yeah, because I had just read the articles that you sent me about paid shills on the internet.
Yeah.
And then I go and watch this video, and I'm like, that's exactly what this guy's doing.
Yeah, that was another thing we wanted to...
This is offensive.
Right.
Yeah.
That was another topic we wanted to cover. If you're wondering what Osborne is referencing, we were going to talk about astroturfing.
He's a pawn of the very powerful logic puzzles lobby.
Oh, yeah. So the title of this is Why Math Instruction is Unnecessary. And he is talking about pretty much in the K through 12 experience. So I'm going to let this play. I might pause it once because there might be a little commentary that I just have to do in the moment. But we're probably going to listen to this in two big clips. So again, John Bennett, Why Math Instruction is Unnecessary. This is a TED Talk from Manhattan Beach.
Thank you. Hello, my name is John Bennett, and I am a middle school and high school math teacher. But I have to tell you something. I don't think what I teach is very important. In fact, if it were up to me, I would no longer require math to be taught, or I should say required, in middle school and high school. Now, some of you may not agree with me, and that's okay. But that's what this is all about, right? So my attitude wasn't always this way. In fact, it's evolved over time. And I want to share with you my story of how it evolved and also what we can do about it, my solution. That'll come at the end. It all started with what I call the big question. All my students ask me this every year. Mr. B, when are we going to use this stuff in like real life, this math stuff? Yeah, I had to come up with an answer with that. So I came up with one. I was a green math teacher. I was full of optimism. I was like a superhero. I was like, math man. I was going to convince them that math is everywhere. It is in the spiral of the seeds of a sunflower and the same spiral in galaxies. It's the same spiral. It's a mathematical curve that's connected to something called the golden ratio, which I think is pretty cool. But alas, that was not met by my students. But that's okay, because I had another trick up my sleeve, another answer to the big question, and that was math is helpful. Scientists would not be able to use the tool of mathematics to design the iPhone, internet, in your pocket, man. Golden Gate Bridge, cloning a sheep. You couldn't have that without math, right, guys? Guys? Hello? Is this thing on? Yeah, whatever, math, man. So that didn't go over big. So I had to find another way to connect my students to this math stuff. This stuff wasn't working. I know. I could pick something they could relate to. You might end up choosing a job that requires some math, Yeah, like I'm going to do a job that requires this stuff. But I would tell them, you know what, maybe not now, but maybe, who knows, 10 years down the line, you might pick something. You might want to be an engineer or something. And you can do it, man. So that's what I became. You can do it, man. I know you can, and I'm going to help you. And through the years, students would come back to me, my old students, through emails, and they would stop by the old school, and they'd say, hey, Mr. B, how's it going? I'm like, hey, how's that math? You still using it, right? No, not really. 4 of them said yes. Guess what they all do? Thank you, they're math teachers. So I began to think, they're not really using this stuff. But don't get me wrong, if a student comes up to me and says, yo, Mr. B, I want to be an engineer. I want to use this math stuff. I like it. I like math. I like science. I want to go for it. I would stop at nothing to make sure that that kid got the resources that he or she needed. But think about it for a second. 300 million people in the United States, 1.5 million engineers. That's 0.5%. Let's double that number. For every engineer, let's say there's another person who uses some math in his or her job. That's still only 1%. Whoa, how many percent does that make of that people that don't need higher math? You guessed it, 99% of us don't need it. So I had to come up with something better. Another answer to this, the big question, when am I going to use this math stuff in real life? And I went to the dark side of the force, and I used fear. I said, you know what? Guess what? You're on a certain path. Yes, you are. You're on the dark side of the force. And what that dark side is all about is you got to get good grades now in high school. You got to do math to get that. You got to do well on the SATs, everyone all together now. You got to get good grades in high school so you can get a good college. You got to get a good college to get yourself a good job. You got to get a good job to get good money, and good money to be happy and successful. Right, guys? I had the answer to the question, and I had them in the palm of my hand. Yes, that's the answer I'm going to use from now on, I said. But you know what? It didn't really sit right here. It didn't sit right. It worked. And I started talking to my buddies. Hey, how's it going? Facebook, high school reunions. And I realized that the guys who got these high, and women too, got the high GPAs, went to the good colleges, weren't necessarily the most successful, whatever that means to you. In fact, the success didn't depend on what college they went to or even if they went to college. Well, maybe it's about the SATs. That's it. The SATs will predict how successful my kids will be in the future, right? Well, I'm going to defer to the well-known educational reformer, Alfie Kohn. 10 years ago, he said this: the SAT is a measure of resources more than of reasoning. Year after year, the College Board's own statistics depict a virtually linear correlation between SAT scores and family income. Bottom line, SATs measure how rich the guy's parents are, and that's it.
I want to stop there and talk about that for a minute.
Okay, let's do that.
There's 2 points that were brought up. The first one is college. The second one is the SATs.
Right.
Now,
which is all about college.
Yeah, there would really be no other purpose for taking that test if you weren't planning to go to college.
For fun.
Yeah, well, that's probably more rare, I would say, from my experience. And I've worked on this with a lot of kids over the years. And the fact that there is a direct correlation, or what Alfie Kohn said. Now, Alfie Kohn is somebody that I agree with on a lot of things, but for him to say that it's not a test of reasoning, it's just a test of resources, I don't think that that's true at all.
No, not remotely.
Why would there be a correlation? Now, of course, correlation is not causation. That's very important to point out.
Yes.
But why would there be a correlation between parental income and higher SAT scores? One doesn't cause the other one.
Not directly, I don't think, no. But through a number of other, it's a pretty complex.
In statistics, we call that unspecified variables.
Yeah, there we
you
go.
Leave out the unspecified variables, you end up with a higher correlation between the variables that you do specify.
Here's what I think it is.
Okay.
People who have higher incomes can afford tutoring.
Yes.
For the SAT.
That's probably a big part of it.
Don't ever remember having any low-income students in my SAT class. And I think that the other reason why there's a correlation between grades and income is there's a lot more to worry about. There's a lot more to distract you, obviously, when you don't have any money. Or, you know.
Well, let me throw this in there.
Sure.
So the SAT is very important for getting scholarships.
Yeah.
Right? Who needs scholarships? People who don't have as much money.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you spend a much lower amount of money on getting SAT tutor than have to pay for 4 years of college?
It seems like that would make sense.
But, you know, it's not for people with low incomes. It may not be a matter of wouldn't you rather do this than that. But, like, there's no chance in hell you're going to be able to afford an SAT class. So it's not even a question of
how much is an
rather.
SAT class? Like $100?
No.
$500?
$500.
$500 for how many? Like, that must not be just a one-time deal.
That might
like
be. I would charge $495 for 10 hours of instruction.
Okay.
And I was told that that was highly competitive. I know the company that I used to work for in a much wealthier area down in Needham, Massachusetts, used to bill about $75 an hour. And they would pay me $35 an hour.
Yeah. That's well out of the reach of a lot of people.
But people are obsessed with that down. Like, from what I found down there, people, like, getting bad SAT scores was just absolutely devastating because you had to compete with all of your friends, especially in this Needham school district, I remember. So, yeah, but I agree with what you're saying. And what you're saying, Osborne, totally makes sense. But, Corey, what you said, like, it's not even a choice, because I think that why would somebody... Well, who's not taking the SATs? I don't think anyone who's not planning to go to college, which covers certainly a lot of low-income people, would even take the SATs.
Why bother?
Here's another question then. How big of a correlation is there between taking these SAT tests or courses and performance on the test? Since that's your line of work, I assume you're going to have a biased answer about that, right?
The first time I took the SAT, I did very bad. I did not do good at all. I was in, the average range. The next time I took the test with no prep, I got about a score that was, I think, 300 points higher, just from exposure. Right? So I think if somebody went and just kept taking the test over and over again, they would do better just by having more familiarity with the test each time they did it. But I really feel, and I've thought about recording a series of YouTube videos, just like 2-hour SAT or something like that, where I could give people 10 or 15 tips that would, I think, just knowing these simple things could dramatically raise their SAT scores. So if somebody does nothing, I don't think that they're in a good position to score well on the test. So the answer, the simple answer to your question would be that, yes, I think that these prep classes can help considerably.
I don't believe you.
I would find that I could usually, if you took somebody's PSAT scores, this is about as scientific as I was able to get it, and then calculated what their SAT scores would be if just the correlation from their PSAT to their SAT scores, that they're scored differently. But if you just translated the score from one to the other, I could usually raise their score 200 to 300 points.
Wow.
And for some people,
here's what I know with my one data point.
Okay.
I took SAT twice, got the same score both times, and I don't believe that there's any degree of preparation I could have done to get a higher score.
Well, what did you get?
1,500
out of 1,600.
Right.
Okay, so that's like you're in the top 1%.
Yeah, but like that 100 points, I don't think there's, other than just blind luck, I would have never gotten those other 100 points.
But if I have a detailed scoring breakdown of what somebody did, like if I have the version of the test, like the College Board is pretty good about this, even though it's kind of a racket. They are pretty good about, they'll give you the test back. They'll rate you in the different areas of like, geometry, number operations, algebra, sentence completion questions, different types of critical reading questions. And you can see exactly what you did wrong. So if I could identify some kind of pattern in what you did wrong, I could focus. If I spent 4 hours with you, I probably could have made a difference of 50 points, I would think. Or, I mean, really, honestly, if you spent the 4 hours on your own, but I've found that even some of the most motivated kids, they're like, as far as like you would think they would be motivated because of what they get for grades, if I say, oh, you know what you should do this week is this. And I won't say you have to do this or this is your homework because I know these kids are busy. Some of them have jobs, they have sports. But if I say, do this, and then next week we'll do this. And I always, it's pretty frequent that they say, oh, I didn't have time. Or no, I didn't do that. So it's hard to get kids to do things on their own. And a lot of times parents have said to me, I think he could do it on his own or she could do it on his own. But if you're here, it would help. So it's coaching.
Yeah.
And I think people feel more assured if they have somebody who is an expert guiding them through a process, right? Like I was doing some just basic like editing on the website today, and Corey was watching me, and I said, "Oh, it's so fun to not be a web designer because you never know what you're gonna get. Once you click change the page, like who knows what'll be on the other side." So if I'm doing something more complex to the website, like an HTML or trying to mess around with CSS, CSS. Sorry, not an expert. I would rather have the guidance of my webmaster there because I know we could save time and do it right immediately. You know what I mean? So I could go forward more confidently if I had the guidance of an expert. And I think that's part of what people are paying for, because this really is a test about, confidence in your abilities and awareness of your abilities, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses. You know, even if there are some people, like if you score, today it's out of 2,400. So if you score 2,400 or, over 2,200 on the SAT, your weaknesses are very few.
Right.
But
isn't now a whole third of that is some kind of writing test, right?
yeah, it's just another 800-point section for writing.
Right. Which has got to be completely subjective, right?
No. The way it works is you write an essay.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really subjective about that, because the people who are reading it are just English teachers. So two people will read your essay and grade it from 1 to 6. So in case you wrote something like that offended somebody and they gave you a 1 because they were a dick, somebody else has to read it, and if they give you a 5, there at least has to be a discussion about why there's the disparity between the two scores. The other part of the writing section is 49 questions, and it's grammar, right? So there's a part where they give you like 11 sentences, and the sentence can be written better, and they give you 5 ways to change it. And then there's a bunch where they just have the sentence has one error in it, and you have to find it. And then
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it is. It is fun. I really enjoy it, and I think that the SAT is really about reasoning. I mean, this is why I paused the video, because I think the SAT is a great opportunity to strengthen reasoning skills, critical thinking skills, and people are not doing well on it because their parents are rich. There might be a correlation for the reasons that we mentioned.
Ooh, here's another unspecified variable.
Okay.
People who make more money are less likely to spank their children.
Is that true?
So what happens when you control for that variable?
That's interesting.
Which one of those is going to be more descriptive of your SAT? Well, and people who make more money tend to be better educated. People who are better educated tend to spank their children less. I mean, there's all kinds of competing descriptive variables there. That
it just
all
can't
go hand in hand.
Not anywhere near as simple as he made it sound.
Right. Okay.
So this answer I had in my pocket, I had to let it go. It worked, but I had to let it go. So I had to think of something else. And that's when I shifted. I stopped trying to connect math with my students, and I just started to connect with them. Imagine that. And when I did, they started opening up to me and talking to me about how much math is stressing them out. It does. I turned into, I'm just here to help, man. I'm going to get you through this painful part of your life as painlessly as possible. And they started opening up to me, and they started telling me their stories. And I hate to break it to you, but the story I heard most, I call the Mr. Johnson story. You know, Mr. B, they said, I used to be pretty good at math. You know, I was actually I liked it until I had Mr. Johnson in 3rd grade. And I know, he made me feel stupid and told me I couldn't do it. And, ever since then, I've never really liked or been good at it. I've heard that story far too many times from my students, other students, their parents, adults, my teachers at school.
Did you ever have the experience of a teacher who made you feel stupid, even though we agree that we're all extremely intelligent?
No.
No? Osborne?
I had this one professor from Romania or some such, old cranky guy, and he talked like this.
Yep.
And he would call us stupid all the time. You're so stupid. Just like that.
This was a real thing that happened, not in a movie?
I loved it. There were a lot of people who were very intimidated by this guy, but I thought it was great. To me, he was telling it like it is, instead of sucking up to us like all the other teachers did.
I never had a teacher make me feel stupid. I did have a teacher that would make you feel stupid if you were stupid.
Yeah, well, I mean, what does it mean to be stupid?
Like there was this girl in the class that I had, this teacher. His name was Mr. Waters. He would always say things to us like, "You're all horrible, horrible children, and I hope you all die of face cancer."
No, he wouldn't.
He absolutely would.
In high school?
Sure. But it was like it was like that was Waters. That was his thing. Like he was, joking around with it. He would exaggerate how much he hated us.
I could see that being
He was
funny.
really a very nice guy. But if you were stupid, he didn't give you any, like, there's this girl who came into class and says, Mr. Waters, in Family Living, we role played as different parts of the reproductive anatomy. I was a vagina. And he said, yeah. And then a month later, she came to him and asked him to write her a recommendation letter to NYU. And his response was, recommendation letter? You couldn't find NYU if I gave you a map. Forget it. Like, he refused to write a recommendation letter to NYU for the student because he knew that she was stupid and she shouldn't go to NYU.
A better line would have been, you couldn't find NYU if it landed on your vagina. Let's go back to your story for a minute about this Romanian.
Yeah.
What did he teach?
You're a stupid.
Political science.
Okay. Now, what would get somebody called stupid?
I wish I could remember.
But people tell this story a lot about their college experiences where they're made to feel stupid if they don't agree with the professor.
That's a pretty common one, yeah.
But is this just a lack of knowledge about like things that are objectively true?
I wish I could remember some particular instances. All I remember is what it felt like, I guess.
Yeah.
And I remember just, he would say you're stupid, and I would agree with him because, he was correct in that particular instance. Like, yes, I'm being stupid. I was trying to pull one over on you. Ah, you caught me. Kind of thing.
I would think maybe it was just people in the class who aren't interested in political science.
That could very well. It was one of those core required class things. So there's a lot of stupidity.
I remember feeling, pretty stupid without anyone helping me from about the age of 12 to the age of 18. And never before that and never since. But during that time, we talked about this a little bit on the show we did last week, Osborne, where it was like, well, what's wrong with me here? And I don't remember any teacher ever participating in that. I remember there was this one woman, we had reading. Class was called reading, or it was like English, but it was called reading. Right, which is kind of insulting.
Is it?
Well, in 7th grade, you have a class called reading.
I've seen a lot of 7th graders who can't read. I don't know.
Well, I could read, but what I preferred to do in this class was draw.
Oh.
And this was before I got into my like actual architectural to scale models of baseball stadiums. So I don't remember what I was drawing, but she would come up and rip the drawings out of my hands. And that made me feel kind of, like, I guess, embarrassed.
It's probably supposed to make you feel embarrassed.
Yeah. But I never remember any teacher having an experience, and I'm trying to really think. I mean, my 1st grade teacher was great. 2nd grade teacher was very old. Surprised she survived the year. My 3rd grade teacher was very old. My 4th grade teacher was great. He read us The Hobbit.
Nice.
He did voices for every character.
Can we back up to your story with the ripping away?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like there are at least some points in your life when an incident like that could have like easily pushed you over the edge?
Pushed me over the edge.
Like maybe you take your pen and stab the teacher in the neck with it.
No, I never felt like I was on the verge of doing anything like that.
No?
No. You felt like you were on the verge of these kinds of things?
I believe so.
As a teen?
Yeah, and I definitely feel like, given the vast number of people in society, right? Like there must be some portion of the bell curve that's much closer to that edge.
Yeah.
At more frequent points of time.
I've gone to school with people like that. Sure. Who, the slightest provocation and their arms just start flying around with fists at the end of them.
Yeah.
But I personally, I never.
I'm just surprised we don't hear more stories of people just going nuts and doing crazy stuff like has happened recently in the news.
I think we have enough.
Yeah.
I think we have just the right amount.
I would actually take a little less.
Yeah. You know what?
Definitely
That's
prefer
probably
less. I just don't understand why there's not more, I guess.
Right.
I mean, most people might, I think there's a lot of people who think like, oh, I would love to just. I've had days at work when I was like, you know what, F this. Tomorrow I'm coming in with a rifle.
Yeah, well, it's a little different.
But I would never actually I never actually purchased a rifle.
Yeah, when you're old though, and you can go where you want, and things like that. But when you're a kid and you've got an authority figure that you can't get away from, that just rips the thing that you're doing out of your hands.
It just seems
they need to be dealt with.
But that's not. But you're looking at. This is an interesting question, and I know it's kind of a maybe slightly being dealt with here in kind of a fun way. But there no.
I'm being totally serious.
Okay, all right. So you're asking that question from the point of view of an adult who has a tremendous amount of control over your life, right? So if somebody walked up to you and you were doing something that you like to do, and they're like ripping things out of your hand and saying, you're going to do what I want to do, it would be intolerable,
Right.
But picture me.
But it'd be a much smaller deal, like in the grand scheme of things right now.
Yeah.
If someone ripped a drawing out of my hand, I'd be like, what the hell? All right, bye.
Who would even do that?
I don't know who would even do that. But when you're a kid and that's like your world is so much smaller and that drawing is such a bigger piece of your small world.
And you can't choose not to interact with this person.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like if someone came along and, stole my company from me or something.
Okay, all right. So that's good because what you're saying is that event would seem so much bigger.
Yeah.
Right? But everything, because you feel so small, and at this point, if I was in the 7th grade, I had been in government school for what, 7,000-8,000 hours?
Yeah, I mean, your entire life up to that point has been people telling you what you are and aren't allowed to do. And most people, I think, internalize that into, well, she was right to rip that out of my hand because I'm supposed to be reading and not drawing.
I think that's it.
You're onto it. So you get acclimated to it.
Yes.
Right? You're like, oh, that's another thing.
Stockholm syndrome.
Another thing that goes. But imagine being someone who, like, every one of those things, instead of further acclimating it to you, just further pushes you over the edge. Right? Like, I don't accept these things that are happening.
So why aren't there more people who aren't like, it's surprising to you that there aren't more people who didn't deal with it the normal way, which is what pretty much how I dealt with it.
Right.
So normal, right, Corey, in quotes. So because that event seemed so much bigger, that person seemed so much bigger, the embarrassment was so much bigger, and I seemed so much smaller because that had been my training up to that point in my life. If somebody did it today, it would be a relatively small event where that person is obviously completely disrespectful and behaving in a way that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be processed a little better when you're a regular sized human being, which is not what you feel like when you're 13 or 12 in middle school.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
But never stupid. But that did make me feel stupid, I think.
I never really felt like I was stupid, even when I was like bombing out of Algebra 2 in my junior year of high school. I was like, I never felt stupid. I don't give a crap. So I'm not going to do the work. If I don't do the work, I won't learn how to do it, but I don't care because it's BS. So
I can tell you about, I have them in my memory, like ready as a list, the 3 times that I was made to feel the worst by authority figures in school. Okay. Number one, I was, and I think it has to do with the age I was too. 7th grade, I was into middle school, and I was kind of getting interested in girls, right? And it was science class, and there was a science wing of the building, so like all the classrooms were connected by doors. So I would open the door before the class started, like during the passing period when everyone was coming in. I would open the door and like goof around with the people in the other class. And one day the science teacher, Mr. Roy, who was an old man, came in and he saw me doing this. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. And he screamed at me so loud and pointed his finger in my face and said, "I'm tired of your crap," to me. Because I was, and like yelled at the whole class, but then directed it like through me. Then I think when I was a junior, and maybe it had to do with the same kind of circumstance where I was just this young boy. And that was very intimidating to get yelled at like that by an old man in front of a whole class.
Yeah.
The other time was sophomore year. I was on the JV baseball team. and me and a friend were sitting on the bench during a game, and we were losing. And we laughed. We were telling each other like funny stories or something, and we laughed while we were losing the game. So the coach walks in, and just right in the middle of the game, right in front of the crowd, in front of the other team, in front of all our teammates, starts screaming at the top of his lungs at both of us because we weren't taking it seriously, because we were laughing while the team was losing.
You're not taking this game seriously enough.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. And
this game, this thing that we do for fun, needs to be taken far more seriously.
yeah.
How dare you enjoy yourselves while losing a game?
Yeah.
Well,
That was really scary. I thought this man who was usually, or at times, very nice.
all I can picture is that gym teacher from 21 Jump Street.
This man had a handlebar mustache.
That guy would be so much better with a handlebar mustache.
And there was one more, but I can't remember what it is now. I forgot it.
Oh, sorry. It's
making
my
it-
fault for interrupting you.
No, I forgot it while I was telling the story about the second one. But yeah, I think it had to do with, like if somebody did that to me, even when I was in college, I would laugh. You know? But I think that the sophomore year was probably the last time that an adult could have gotten away with something like that. Where I wouldn't, where I didn't have a job, when I was a junior, I had a job, I had a license, I had sex.
Did you?
When I was a junior in high school, yep, I had
Wow.
sex.
Wow. Early start.
No, I was 16. Isn't that normal?
Pretty normal.
I guess if you watch TV,
What do you mean?
but those are 30-year-old actors playing 16-year-olds, so it's okay for them to have sex.
That's
What?
true. But now, like, what's impressive about an adult? I work at a Mercedes-Benz dealership, right? Now I'm washing cars and moving them around, but I work at a Mercedes
Hey,
dealership.
you drive them,
I
and you didn't have to pay for them. That's awesome.
have sex with this girl named Stephanie.
In the Mercedes?
Nope, never in a car. Yes, we used to have to do it in cars
Nice.
because we were 16, and what can you do?
Right.
Hmm.
What are you going to do? Where are you going to go?
I would smoke a cigarette. Oh, I would take $2, 10 cents down to the variety store, get myself a pack of Camel Lights,
Wow.
drive around in a car on my way to work,
You smoke in the car?
smoking in the car,
Wow.
go work a shift, go have sex with Stephanie. What's an adult going to tell me? What can you do that I can't? I must have been my normal height. You know? I mean, I
Mhm.
was a man-sized man at
Sure.
that point. A man-sized teen.
Yeah.
Doing man things
In your prime.
in my prime. $2 cigarettes,
Wow.
Wow.
drinking,
Those were the
smoking
days.
weed,
Nice.
playing golf. What
Play
wasn't
golf.
an
How
adult?
did you play golf?
What?
How could you afford to play golf? at
It's like
16?
$10.
Really?
The course, the
Yeah.
the Exeter Country Club, like a half hour away from where we are right now. I would go there after school every day. We'd drive in a car, smoking butts, talking about sex. We'd get high. We'd go out. We used to chew tobacco too.
Hmm.
I think before we started smoking.
I grew
Um,
up in San Diego. I think it was like a year's salary to play golf.
Oh, no,
For
there
a
was.
16-year-old. Yeah.
By the time I was 18, we're actually playing at this course on the ocean for free every day.
Oh, nice.
Because a membership was like $15,000 in 1994, but we had this friend whose dad was a member, and then we made friends with like a kid our age who worked on the pro shop. He let us out on the course every
Is
day.
that
for free.
what's the name of that club?
Wentworth by the Sea? And we would go, and he was on a Ritalin prescription. He had gamed that whole system, so we would go take Ritalin and play golf. We were goddamn
Wow.
adults.
I really want to see what that's like. Like a Ritalin game, a golf game, a 18 holes of golf on Ritalin.
You're sharp.
Hmm.
You're focused on
I
the game.
bet.
You know.
I think we may have talked about this on the show one time, but I learned two things when I left academia and went into the business world.
Mhm.
The first of those things that surprised the living piss out of me is how much normal people smoke weed.
Yeah.
Doctors, lawyers, judges, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just college students and professors. Everybody smokes weed.
Nope.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody.
Yeah, we never saw it. Was still very hush hush at the time. Like anytime we would do it in public,
Mhm.
because we didn't know that. Like,
Right.
no one smokes weed with 16-year-olds.
No.
No.
So we thought we were like this tiny little minority of druggies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember we used to. This was the life that I had when I was 16, and I think a lot of the things that I'm describing are pretty typical today. 16-year-olds drive. 16-year-olds have sex. 16-year-olds can have jobs.
Depends on the state.
Can you? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know that I know any 16-year-olds who have jobs.
My
Well,
first-
they can have jobs.
My first job I got immediately, of course, every
Is
day
that
for free.
app?
Shirt.
Mm.
Making donuts with these two men. The combined age of these two guys had to be 300. They were the two oldest men I've seen
You worked
together.
at an apple
I
orchard
worked at
making donuts?
Yeah, there's an apple orchard out in Hampton by the.
Oh, did
by-
you make fritters?
We could have. We had the technology to
Oh
do
my
that.
God, I love
We had the
fritters.
technology.
But no, there's this place called Applecrest that's out by the coast, and I'd take my mom's car, I'd drive there. As soon as I got my license, I was working there, making $5.25 an hour.
Wow.
I'd go into this room with these two old men. They were the oldest men I'd ever seen, and the three of us would sit there in a room, maybe a fifth, a sixth the size of this room. Three of us together, and we would run donuts through this hot oil conveyor belt. And that was my first job.
Here's my experience trying to
Okay.
get a job at that age. When I turned 16,
Mm-hmm.
immediately went around putting applications in at every single business in North County, San Diego. Never once got a call. I did the whole follow-up thing where I'd stop in every once a week, do the, hey, mister, just wanted to let you know I'm really interested in a job, sir. Whole thing. 2 years. Nothing. Nothing. On my 18th birthday, that very day, the phone started ringing off the hook. Every single one of these businesses I'd put an application in. The application had been sitting there in their office for 2 years, started calling me up, offering me jobs.
When you turned 18.
When I turned 18. There's something about the laws or whatever regulatory burden was on these businesses.
What kind of jobs were you
Well, it
applying
might have been
for?
different in California.
Anything,
so-
dishwashers,
Really?
bag boys, all that kind of stuff.
Because our job, the first job, this was like they hired a lot of kids and they drove them like slaves. Like it was not a good place to work at this apple orchard. The second place I worked at, this car dealership, this Mercedes dealership, also, they staffed their lot people. They called us lot boys. And then we were 16, 17 when we did that.
Hmm.
So a lot of kids I knew worked at like convenience store. Like I used to know this kid who worked at a convenience store selling beer and cigarettes. He was in high school with us. That used to be,
Nice.
wow. I bet none of that stuff is possible. I bet California has that kind of strictness has spread out across the whole country now, I bet.
Probably, yeah. It's almost like you got to know someone. Like I would never hire a 16-year-old. Jeez, you're just asking for all kinds of trouble. I mean,
see.
I'd have to know their parents, and they'd have to sign waivers and
promise to show up if he bailed
do-
on you.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, if your kid doesn't show up, if you say your kid is good enough to come work here and he doesn't show up, you're coming in and doing his job.
I picture the problem with you being you go in there with your resume at 16 and you say, how happy are you with your COO?
No,
No, just
No,
dishwasher.
Now, what if
Yeah.
you had tried the 4-in-hand not back then? Would that have made a difference?
perhaps. I don't
Like
know.
they had a note, can't even tie a 4-in-hand.
On the
Refer back to
COO.
in 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Come
Oh.
back when he's 18.
Wow. Oh, no, him.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
couldn't tie that kind of knot.
Mm.
No, I'm thinking that what you're probably talking about is laws, and the unions influence this as well. This is something that I think we've covered on my show before. Is that unions aren't into child labor because they're not into people driving their wages down.
Right.
So I'm trying to think of industries where this is really prevalent. If you have examples of any of this, you can give us a call 843 join SSP. This is a live show. I don't even know if anyone's listening, but I don't.
When I was 16, I was able to get jobs and stuff like bussing tables and stuff like that. But I don't know if I would be able to nowadays where I grew up, because now instead of teenagers, people just hire Mexicans, and there's a lot of them in New Jersey.
God, get them to move up here.
Yeah,
I'm so tired of not having Mexicans in New
it's-
Hampshire. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Absolutely ridiculous.
I saw a white guy with a landscaping truck and a bunch of white guys in it. It was weird.
Yeah. Yeah. The state of landscaping in the state of New Hampshire is so absurd.
It's too
just
white?
ridiculously absurd. And crappy. White people cannot, they don't know how to mow a lawn.
That's a stereotype.
It's an obvious
It's been
stereotype.
borne out by experience.
When you
time
drive
and
around
again.
this state and look at all the shitty lawns everywhere and see these horrible white people trying to make them look remotely respectable, it's absolutely
I just picture, this nice neighborhood where some guy's lawn is all messed up and the neighbors were like talking about him and they're like, he lets other whites mow his lawn.
Yeah.
It's all whites. I had a yard full of whites doing his yard work.
In New Jersey, if there's a white person mowing your lawn, it's because you made your kids do it and you're white. That's the only time.
I want to go to the chat here for a second because somebody brought up something that I think is interesting.
Someone's talking about square dancing in the chat.
Nice. It's your chat, everyone. Enjoy it. Do what you like in there. School is an exercise in public humiliation. I think that's why reality shows, in quotes, are so big, is that it reminds people of the abuse suffered in school.
Wow.
Now, this is interesting because when I see people like really, like in really embarrassing situations for them, I have to escape it. I can't watch it.
Yep.
All right. So an example of something that I exposed myself to recently was this.
Even like staged, like fictionalized shows.
Which this might have been.
I just can't deal with it.
What is like a really, what's a good example of that? Louis, the Louis C.K. show. Is
Extras.
Extras.
The British are so into that like social embarrassment humor. I could barely watch Extras. It makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's times where you're just like, oh, but you're kind of laughing, but you have to.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, it can be funny because they design their whole like Extras is the best example of this. They design the entire show around the fact that everyone this guy knows is an idiot, and he's kind of an idiot too, and they just go around being idiots. And the natural thing happens when you go around acting like an idiot is that things don't go your way, usually in the most embarrassing way possible. It's really difficult for me to watch stuff like that.
The most recently that I felt this way, and this happens a lot to me on YouTube, was the Alex Jones, Piers Morgan thing that I talked about on the last show.
Yep.
I had to keep pausing it every 60 seconds and just like walking away and being like, or something like that. And then going back and being able to like, I could only like digest like 60 seconds of it at a time because it was just, could you imagine being in that room? Could you imagine being the guy behind the camera? Could you imagine being the producer and just being stuck there and having to like I remember so many times in my life where I see something uncomfortable start to happen, like involving people that I really don't care about, and I just skedaddle. I'm just out of that room as fast as possible.
Yeah,
like
but
at a party or something.
In school, if the embarrassing thing is the teacher is screaming at someone, you can't leave that situation. So
right.
you have to, not only could you be embarrassed at any time, because let's face it, like high school, like at any moment, something horribly, horribly embarrassing could happen to you.
So do you think that people, all right, so I guess, I mean, people can deal with these things, I guess, in a myriad of ways.
Oh, yeah.
So my reaction when I see these situations or having experienced these situations, as I've already talked about tonight, is not to like crave a chance to see it happen to somebody else.
Right.
I want to get away from it.
Yeah.
But somebody else, I mean, I don't know. That person in the chat should call in and explain what they mean. Has anyone tried to call in? I have barely looked at this computer screen. Let me check it out. We're just going to take a 3-minute time out here, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up with this topic. And if we have time to do something else, we will.
So just sit and obey. Public school, you keep me in good mentality.